Hello, good morning. Welcome back. Today we'll start with lecture 7, that is classes and object. By the end of this chapter, you will be thorough with writing programs using classes and objects, and make it a practice to write program using classes only. Don't write programs with standalone functions, write class programs. Why I am telling you this is, in the lab it is compulsory that you have to write a class program only, and even in theory many concepts cannot be implemented if you are writing a standalone function program or only a void main program. So make sure that you will be writing, whether it's a small program or a big one, using classes and objects only. So we'll start with classes and objects. The objectives, that is, in the chapter we are going to learn about the class, the definition, declaration of a class, how do we write a class, what are access specifiers, member functions, then definition of a function inside a class and outside a class, and defining an object, that is, how do we create an object for the class, and using objects, how do we access the members of the class, array of class, array as a member function. Like array can also, array, what is array? We have already studied what is array. So array as a part of the class, classes, objects and the memory allocated, array of class objects, and passing objects as function parameters. Till now we saw passing integer type in the last chapter. So we will study how are we going to pass an object as a parameter, and difference between a structure and a class. By this we will be thorough with classes and objects. We will start with class. So what is a class? Even in the last chapter we have done what is a class. It is nothing but collection of data members and member functions under one name. That is, you will have data members as well as functions associated with that under one name, which is nothing but a class. Then we'll study what is a class member. A class member is a component of a class. So a class member can either be a data member or a member function. Anything inside a class is called a class member. The variables which are declared inside a class are called as data members. What are variables? Int x, int y, char, name of 40. All these are different. Even a structure can be declared inside a class. You can have an array declared inside. All these are called variables declared inside a class, and they are known as data members. Then the functions declared inside a class, like get data, display data, print data, or calculate. It can be any user defined functions which you have declared inside a class, is known as the member functions. So class has data members and member functions. The class description, what does it specify? The representation of the objects, like what are the different objects or what are the different data members and what are the operations which can be performed. This together will be inside a class. Now we'll study about the general syntax of a class definition. How does a class look? You should be very thorough with this. Inside a class, I will do this private, protected and public in detail. So all these three, private, protected and public, are called access specifiers. What do you mean by an access specifier? As the name suggests, it will say where who can access it, and who cannot. So access specifiers. Then a keyword. Class is a keyword and it has to be written in lowercase only. Class is a keyword and class name is any identifier or a user defined name. So you need to follow all the rules applicable while naming the identifiers. So class and class name. Class is a keyword, space the class name. Class name can be anything. It is upon you, whatever name you want to give. It is always advisable to give a relevant name so that you can understand what is the class about. Then it starts with braces, ends with that, and then you need to terminate it with a semicolon. In that you have three different parts. One is private, protected and public, and inside each you can have data as well as member functions can be declared. And it is not compulsory that you should have all the three. You can write a class with only one access specifier or two or all the three. But then the protected will come into picture only in case of inheritance. Fine. Only if it is inheritance you will have protected, otherwise it will be only private and public. And the default access specifier, that is, if I don't specify anything, it will always be private. And then private, public and protected are in lowercase, and then you have to give a colon. Don't put a semicolon here. Private colon, and after that there is no curly braces here. You can specify or you can declare variables, you can declare functions also, and then the protected and the public. The entire thing is enclosed between curly braces, and then the class has to be terminated by a semicolon. If you forget the class termination, then everything whatever follows would be included inside the class and it will give you lot of errors. That too, especially when you are writing a class program or when you are executing it in the lab, then you will get lot of errors if you have forgotten this semicolon. So make sure you terminate a class with a semicolon. This is how my class looks. I will write an example to show you also. So what was the class? Syntax of the class declaration. Class is a keyword which is used to declare a class. Then user defined name is whatever the name you give it to your class, and the body of this one class is enclosed in flower curly braces. Then class body contains the declaration of its member functions and data members. Then it has three access specifiers or the members of the class. When I say class member, it includes both the data member and the member functions. They fall in either private, public or protected category. Please have a look. So by the end of this, you should be thorough with what is a class. How do you declare a class? Class is a keyword, and then you give a name of the class, open the curly brace, end the curly brace with a semicolon. Inside, in the public, private and protected part, you can declare data members and member functions. It is not compulsory that you should have all the three access specifier parts. You can have only public, only protected, only private, or you can have private and public. Protected comes into picture only when you do inheritance. You can have a look. The next is access specifiers. So what do I mean by access specifier? So let us take a generic example, like for example in a hospital. So a hospital, if I consider, then outside people belonging outside the hospital are outside the class. If I say hospital is a class, so the accessibility, Anybody from outside can access the reception, the pharmacy, the billing counter and the waiting lobby. So these things are public to anyone. Like you need to, it's public, anybody can come and access that. Fine. And then the ICU unit. ICU unit is not accessible by everybody, and that too you have certain timings, and only one or two, like the relatives of the patient, can access it. So it's a protected access. Not everybody, but only the relatives of the patient can access it. Then comes the consultation, like the patient and the doctor. So the patient and the doctor, even the third person, will not be allowed there. The consultation is only between the patient and the doctor, and it is very private. Like outside people, not even your relative, will have access to it. So that is called private. So this is something wherein you can set the access rights. Similarly, in programming, I can also set like which data can be accessed outside, which cannot be accessed outside, who can access it, who cannot access it. All this can be set by the programmer. In the hospital example, the doctors of the hospital or the nurses will have access to the patient, to the ICU unit as well as the lobby. But from outside, whoever is coming will have the restricted access. Same way we can set the access so that your data will be secure. So in the last class, if you remember, structured programming, the main threat was data security, because any function could access it, and during that course the data could get corrupted. Here I can restrict the access of the data by using access specifiers and writing it as a part of the class. So members and data together inside the class is encapsulation. That is, you're encapsulating it inside, and then you are giving access specifiers, or you're specifying where it can be accessed. So the different access specifiers are private, public and protected. Private is the default access specifier. That is, if you don't specify anything, then automatically it takes by default as private. And then protected is used when you do inheritance. We'll read this. Every data member of a class is specified by 3 levels of access protection. That is, access protection for hiding data and function which are internal members of the class. They help in controlling the access of data members. That is, you can control who can access, who cannot, where it can be accessed. All this can be controlled. That is, they help in controlling the access of the data members. We'll start each one in detail. We'll start with private. What does private mean? As an English word, it means that it can be accessed only within the class. Only the access is very, very limited. So, when I say private access, means a data member can be accessed only by the class member function. Friend function, we'll do it later. You don't have to worry about friend functions now. You just concentrate on member functions of the class. So, private member means a data member can be accessed by only the member function of the class, and the data members or member functions declared private cannot be accessed outside the class. So it cannot be accessed, it is not accessible outside the class. The objects of the class can access the private only through the public members functions of the class. Okay, this property, that is, you can access the private data only through the public member functions, not directly. This is indirect access. This property is called data hiding. By default, data members in a class are private. Now I'll write one example. I will tell you what errors it can give or how do I mention. Then we can come back here again so that you will understand this properly. So first, how do I write a class? By using the keyword class. Okay, I will say class greeting. Let greeting be the class. Then I will have private colon. This is how you write it, private colon, and then I will have char name of 20 characters. Okay, so in the private section I will have one data member, that is one variable which is going to hold your name. This is clear till now. The name of my class is greeting, and I am starting with the keyword class because I am declaring a class, a user defined name, and then I open my curly braces. Then I wrote private. See, if you don't write anything also, it means private only. If you want to put it in public or protected section, you need to explicitly specify that. Otherwise, if you don't specify anything, by default private is taken. So I'll name this. Then I'll put public void. How do I have a function? The return type of the function, name of the function, and open and close brackets. This is how you write a function. Void, I'll say name of my function is hello, and I am not passing any arguments to it. Then I will open it. Then I'll say cout, enter your name. Fine. In name. After that, cout hello, welcome, your name. Whatever name you have entered, it will print you. This will finish my function, and then I will close my class also and terminate it with a semicolon. So this is my program where I say private. In the private section I have one data member, and then I have in the public section one member function. I have not written protected here. In private I have one member function, one data member. In public I have one member function. So now to allocate memory of a class for the class and to access the data of the class, I have to create an object. So main is a library function. Every program should have a main. So in main, what I have to do, is main part of the class? Is main part of the class? No. Main does not belong to greeting because I have closed greeting here, and main has to be standalone only. That is, you cannot write main function in C++ as a part of any class. So void main, if I don't specify anything, it will be like only main is nothing but int main. By default, the return type is int. So if I write only main, then I need to return 0, because if it's int main, it returns 0. What do you mean by return 0? The program has executed without any errors. So I will write this. And how do I create an object? The object is created by class name space the object name. So what is the name of the class here? The name of the class is greeting. And I'll give one space, and I have to give an object name. Again, object name is any identifier name. You need to follow the same set of rules. And in one program here, you cannot have two objects of the same name. So I will say GOBJ. Okay. Now I have created my object. Suppose like dot, if I say cout gobj dot name, then cout hello gobj dot hello. And main is a function, so I am not terminating it with a semicolon. So tell me what happens here. So let me say I will write this first and then write this. Whatever the order, if I change. First I have created an object, and then I am trying to access the private data of the class. Where is name declared? It is declared in the private section. So if I try to access this, it will give me error, because private data is not accessible outside the class. So main is not a part of this class. I cannot access this data from main or any other function which is not a part of this class. Fine. And then only the private data is accessible only to the member functions of the same class. So hello is a part of greeting, name is also part of greeting. So hello can access name because both belong to the same class. Here what am I doing? I am calling hello. Fine. So hello is in the public section. Anything written inside public can be accessed from outside the class. It is accessible everywhere. So when I say hello, what happens is the control will go here, it will execute, it will take in the name and print the name. So how am I accessing the name? I cannot have direct access here because it is a private data, but then I can access the private data through a public member function. Is it making any sense now? What we studied in the last slide, we said you can access the private data through the public function. So that is what I am doing here. I cannot directly access this, but then through the public function I am accessing that, and in turn I am printing the name. Directly I cannot print because it is the private data. Here hello is a function in the public section, so I can access it. Have a look. I will write one more example for private. So see, class, I'll say sum. Fine. I don't specify anything here. Int x comma y. Okay, and then void calculate cal, I can say int, so x is equal to 10, y is equal to 20. So cout x plus y. Close it, close the function. Close the class. So what I have written, int x, y. I have two data members, that is x and y, of type integer. And then I have a function void cal, which means that the function is not returning any value and cal is the name of the function. And since the argument list bracket is blank, I am not passing any arguments to it. And then I am hard coding values, that is I am giving values to it. I am not taking it from the user. Fine, this is just an example, so I am doing this, it works, but then it is not good programming practice to hard code values. Why is it so? See, this x and y values are fixed, so every time whenever I run this program, it will give me the sum of 10 plus 20 only. It will not give me anything. So for one value you don't write a program. So you should be able to write a program in such a way that it can work for any values, so that it happens only when you take it from the user using cout and cin. Just this is an example, so I am writing x is equal to 10, y is equal to 20, cout x plus y, so it will calculate the sum of x plus y, that is it will print me 30 here. So clear with the class, my class is done, class is the keyword, name and everything. Now I have to write my main function, void main. Again main is not here the part because I have terminated my class here. This sum class has two data members and one member function. Then void main, I have to access the data, the first step is to create an object. So how do I, and memory is also allocated only when you create an object. That is, when you create an instance of the class, memory gets allocated for the class. So can you tell me how many bytes of memory would be allocated for this? Memory is not allocated for functions, it is allocated for the data members. So how many variables I have? 2 of type integer, so it will be 4 bytes of memory, 2 for x, 2 bytes for x and 2 bytes for y. So I have done this, it's over. So now I will create an object. The general syntax is the class name sum, and I will say SOBJ, that is sum object. See, this is not compulsory, I am writing it that way. You can give A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, whatever name you want to give. So I am associating it with sum, so when I see this, it will be easy for me to understand that this object belongs to the class sum. That is why I am giving this name. Then the next part is like, I can, with the help of the object and the dot operator, I can access the data members as well as the member functions of the class. So SOBJ dot x. See, if I write cout x obj dot x, cout SOBJ dot y and cout cal SOBJ dot cal. So here I am just printing the value of the data. Remember this one, what is the value of this? It should print me 10 here, it should print me 20 here, and then this is called the function call, right? I am calling the function, I am using object dot that because it is a member function of a class. If it is not, then directly I will say cal, it will execute if it's a standalone function. Now tell me what would be the output here. Just go through this, think what would be the output here. So all these three will give me error. Why? Why will it give me error? Because I said when I don't specify anything. See, I have not specified any access specifiers here. So when I don't specify anything, it means that it is private. Yeah. Once it is private, it cannot be accessed. So what does private have? It has two variables or data members and one member functions. Since the function is also in the private section, I cannot call the function from main. Getting it? All the three will give you error. That is, you cannot access the private data outside the class. Only the function, see, cal is a function of this sum class, so it can access the x and y variables. Otherwise, you cannot access it outside the class. Any doubts in this? No? Please go through this. Still one more scenario I will write for private only. So now we'll write one more example. Fine. The same example I'll take, but I'll make a little variation in that. So what is the name of the class? Class sum. Fine. Then I will say in the private. So whenever I write private, it is always in the lower case. Don't write P in uppercase. Everything is in lower case only, because private is a keyword, and then you need to put a colon there. Don't put a semicolon. Be careful, and you have to put a colon only there. Then here I have int x comma y. So what does it mean? I have two data members of type integer. Then I will write one function also, void. So function is void means it does not return any value. It is not going to return any value. Then I will say get data and open and close brackets. This is how you need to write a function. That is return type of the function, name of the function, and open and close brackets with an argument list inside. But here I am not going to pass any arguments, so I am leaving it as blank. Then I will open this braces, curly braces. So I will ask the user to enter the value of x and y, and I will take in the value. So what I have to write first? Cout enter the value of x and y. So I have asked the user. Once you run this, this will be printed on the screen. As a user, I will know what I have to enter. So then I will say cin x and y. This is called cascading of input operators, and I can do it because both x and y are of the type integers only. Then I will close my function, because get data is only to get the data from the user. So I am just taking it, asking the user to enter two values, and I am taking in the two values. The first value entered by the user would be stored in x. The second value entered by the user would be stored in y. This completes my function. Then I am closing the function. You do not terminate a function with a semicolon. So next is public. So everything in private, then you cannot, in the last example we saw, we cannot access it from main, because main is not a part of this class, or main will not be part of any class in C++. Main will always be a standalone function. In public, I will say void display. Like I am going to display the values entered by the user. So how do I write it? Cout, I will say x, whatever the value, this will be printed as it is, and then the value entered by the user, that is x, and then I will say y then I will write y. So what it will print me? X colon value of x, because it is outside the bracket. Anything inside the double quotes is printed as it is, and outside the quote the value of that variable is printed. Where is the value? Where do we get this value from? Here, because I am asking the user in get data to enter the values, and then whatever the values has been entered, I am storing it here. So that whatever the user entered, that value will be printed in x, and whatever the user entered would be printed in y. So after that I am closing, because I am done with that. The display function only displays the values entered by the user. Fine. So this sum, then I have closed my function, but I haven't closed my class. How do I terminate my class or close my class? By a semicolon. Make sure the number of open brackets should be equal to the number of closed brackets in proper places. Otherwise your program will give you lot of errors only because of a bracket mistake. My class sum has two data members in the private section, that is x and y, and it has got two member functions, get data and display data, which does not take in any arguments, which do not return any arguments. Get data is in the private section and display is in the public section of the class, and I have closed my class here. So any doubts? No, like it is very clear. Now to access this, to allocate memory to this, I need to create an object. That is, object is nothing but an instance of a class. How do I create object? I will create it in main. Okay, void main. Again void is in lowercase, main also is in lowercase. I have, how do I create object? Class name space the object name. So what is the class name? The name of the class is sum, SOBJ. I will write it as SOBJ. Then I have to call the functions. How do I call? By object name dot the class name. And what order should, object name dot the function name. What order should I call? If I call display first and then get data, it will give me junk values, because in display you are taking in, then only you can print. So the first function to be called should be get data, and then only I can call display. You have to be very careful about the order also. So I will say SOBJ dot, what is the name of the function? Get data. Okay. Then SOBJ dot display. I will close it. Now when I execute, will it work or will it give me error? It will give me error because I am trying to call a private function of the class. So private is not accessible outside the class. This will work, but this will not work, because this is in the public section. It will work, but then this will not work because it is in the private section of the class. Fine. Now what should I do then? I should call it here. Either there are two things I can do here. I can put get data in the public section so that it is accessible, or I need to call it in display. For example, if I don't want to make get data a public function, what I can do is I can call it here, get underscore data. Fine. I don't need an object here because both display and get data belong to the same class. So this one I can take it, only this I will call. Now what happens? SOBJ dot display. Definitely it will execute this function. How will it do? Because it's in the public section. So display, it will execute this here, and what is the first line? It is the function call. This is a function call, right? So where is the function? The function is here. It will go execute this, take in the values of x and y, then the next line is printing it. So it will execute this. If you this is called indirect calling, that is calling a private function in a public function of the class. So when you call this public function, in turn it will call the private function of the class. So this is private. Hopefully you would have understood what is private access specifier by this time. Otherwise, like as and when we do private, I will explain again. So this is just the idea how private works or how an access specifier works. Now we will go through this again so that it will make more sense this time. Private access means a data member can be only accessed by the class member function. Friend function, we'll leave it here. We'll do it when we do friend function. So private can be accessed by only the member function of the class. When I say private data member, x and y could be accessed by the data members of the class, but it cannot be accessed outside. Data members or member functions declared private cannot be accessed outside the class. Yes, get data and x and y in the example, they will not be able to access from main, which is outside the class. That is what this means. The objects of the class can access the private members only through the public members. What is it? So I can access x and y through display, which is a public member, and I can also access the private function through a public function. Correct? We did that. So that is what this line means. This property is also called as information hiding, because you are hiding the values of, you are hiding x and y because it is not accessible outside. And by default, this also we did. By default, the members in a class are private. Please go through this again. Yeah, we finished private. We will do public access specifier. So we did public in the example also. We'll see this. The members which are declared public can be accessed by any function inside or outside the class. That is, you can access anything in the member functions inside the class, can also access the public data, as well as the functions outside the class can also access public data. It is accessible everywhere. Some of the public functions of the class provides an interface for accessing private and protected data members. What do you mean by that? In the last example, we saw how using display I could access x and y as well as get data. So all the three were private data of the class. So, using public function, that is display, I could access the private data. It provides an interface for accessing the private data as well as protected data of the class. I'll just tell you what is protected, but then now we'll be using only private and public. When we do inheritance, we will write protected. The members declared using protected can be accessed only by the member functions and the derived class member functions. What it means is private data can be accessed only by the member functions or of the class, but protected is something which can be accessed by the derived class. That is, if you are creating one class from the other, that is the base class and the derived class. Inheritance, last chapter we did that. That is creating a class from an existing class. So both the classes, that is the derived class as well as the base class, can access the protected data of the base class, whereas it is private to the outside of the class. That is, protected data also cannot be accessed from main. It can be accessed only by the functions of the derived class, whereas private cannot be accessed even by the derived class, and private data never gets inherited. So protected is similar to private access specifier for outside the class. Only difference is it can be accessed by the derived class member functions. So when we do inheritance, you will understand it perfectly. Now it is similar to without inheritance, the protected data cannot be accessed outside. It is similar to private. Only when we inherit, it can be inherited and can be accessed, whereas private data neither gets inherited nor it can be accessed. This is one small example code module, that is class account. Class is a keyword, account is the name of the class. In that you have two sections, one is private, one is public. In private you have account number, which is of type integer, name and account type both are character arrays. Name would be the account holder's name, and character account type can be your current account, your savings account, your demat account, NRI. So what type of account is that? And the balance, again you can either make it as int or float. Float would be better because you can also have paise included in that. Then in public you have two member functions, one is get data and display data. So this is how a class looks. Now we'll write an example to find the entered number is an even or a odd number using classes. Fine. How does a class start? Using the keyword class. So even, odd. I will give the name of my classes even underscore odd. I will open the bracket, private. In that, how many variables do I need? I need one, because I have to see the entered number is an even number or a odd number. So I will need only one variable. So let it be integer int n. Fine. So n is a variable which is of type integer. Next, in the public section I will write void get number cout enter the number endl cin n. So here the name of the function is get underscore number. I am asking the user enter the number and cin n. The next function I will have is void cal and output, calculate and output. So this one, this function, what I will do, if n modulus 2 is double equal to 0, that is modulus is an operator which will give you the remainder. So when n gets divided by 2, it will give you the remainder, and n is an integer, so there will be no point values. It will directly give you the integer division, gives you the remainder. If the remainder is equal to 0, it means that n is a even number, because all even numbers are completely divisible by 2. What I will write? Cout even. Fine. Else it is odd number, because it is either even. If the remainder is 1, it will be odd. Cout odd. Now I have to close my function. See, this is the opening function bracket, this is the closing function bracket. This is the opening if statement, closing if statement bracket, body of if statement, and this is the closing of else, opening and closing of else. Now I need to close my class also. Fine. And now I will write main, void main. First I need to create an object. Even underscore, how do I create? Class name space the object name, EOBJ. Okay. Next, first what order should I call? Get number should be first, and then the calculate output, EOBJ dot get underscore number. Next is EOBJ dot cal underscore output. I will close my main. So this is my program. I will go through this again. What is this? Class, and even even underscore odd is the name of the class. In the private section I have n, which is an integer value. I have made it int, otherwise I cannot find the remainder there. If it is a float value, always the remainder will be 0, because it will get divided to the point value. Then void get underscore number. Where is it written? In the public section of the class. So the public section members can be accessed outside the class, and the member function can access the private data of the class. Then cout enter number C in n. So I am taking in, the user will ask the program will ask the user to enter a number, and you are taking in the number. Whatever number is entered would be stored in n. Void, this is the end of my get number function. Then I am writing one more function. Again, this function, the name of the function is cal underscore output, without arguments, without return. Then I am saying this is the opening bracket of the function if n modulus 2 double equal to is a relational operator which will compare the LHS with the RHS. If both are equal, will give you a true value, otherwise it will give you a false value. If this is true, then it is a even number, else it is a odd number. Then I am closing my else here, I am closing my function here, and I am closing my class here and terminating it with a semicolon. So this is my class. Then I am writing main. First thing is to create an object. How do I create an object? Class name space the object name. So EOBJ dot get number, because first you need to get number, then only you can calculate the order. You should pay attention to the order of function calling. So this one gets executed first, and then this one it will print you even or odd. So hopefully there will be no doubts here. Next, the homework question of today. Today we saw what is a class, how to write a basic structure of a class, syntax, how to write a class, what are access specifiers, what does it actually mean, and we wrote one simple sample program using classes and objects and the access specifiers. The question is, what is the significance of using access specifiers? Mention the different types and short note on each. What is the default access specifier? It is private, right? It's a 1 marker question. This is a 5 marker, this is a 1 marker. So next class we'll see how to define a function inside, outside, objects, and we'll also study about different class members. We have studied only integer members and character array. We'll study different structure as a class member and how to access it, array as a class member, how to access it. We'll do all that in the coming lectures. So take care. Bye bye.